Hi everyone, Matteo here. In this video I'm going to show you the aluminum conversion kit from air racing. It's made for the Tamiya CC-01 chassis. I have here a brand new Tamiya CC-01 chassis, ready to install the aluminum upgrade parts. In the box are some manuals for every build section, and the parts sealed in plastic bags. As first, I start with the front suspension. These are all parts needed for it, and the first step is to install the lower suspension arms. I've already inserted the first E-clip and installed the pin with the suspension arm on the lower part from the CC-01 chassis. And insert the second E-clip from the other side. This screw is for the installation of the shocks. I'll use it later. Now I'm ready to install the C-hubs. Nice, the parts are marked as left or right. I install the C-hubs on the lower suspension arms by using the pins and E-clips. The next step is the build of the upper suspension arms. I turn on the ball ends on the turnbuckle. Be careful, one side have a right thread and the other side have a left thread. And check the correct length in the manual. Now I screw on the ball head on the C-hub and using some thread lock. And the other ball head on the chassis. Now I can add the upper arms on the C-hubs. Before I can install this on the chassis, I have to make the steering linkage. Here are some parts pre-assembled, but I take out the screws and use thread lock. Otherwise, it's easy possible the parts losing itself during driving. Screw on the ball heads and build the steering rods. Here also, one side have a left thread and the other side a right thread. The correct length is shown in the manual. Now I'm working on the steering shaft. Screw on the ball head. Insert the bearing. And screw on the arm. Now I can install this on the chassis. First, insert the ball bearing and then the steering shaft. From the underside I have to insert a ball bearing also, and then install the lower steering arms on the correct position. On the other side, insert two ball bearings and screw on the arms on the chassis. Do not tighten this screw too much. The arm should move easily without resistance. After put on the rods, the steering linkage is finished. Now I'm able to install the front suspension on the chassis. On these screws, I do not use thread lock, because the stepping screws going in plastic cannot loosen itself. Then press on the upper arm on the ball head. The next step is the installation of the steering knuckles and universal shafts. Here again, important is to loosen this little scrub screw and retighten it by using thread lock, to be sure no self-loosening happen. Screw on the ball heads. Insert the bearings. The shaft. And screw it on the C-hubs with the step screw from the CC-01 kit. After put on the steering rods, the front suspension and steering is finished. But here I found a little problem. The steering links touching the lower part of the chassis and move the suspension upwards when steering. They're touching here. To solve this, I remove a bit of the material on this part. To do this, I use a Dremel. Here you can see the modified part. And after installed, it works fine now. The front part is finished now. I start now with the rear suspension. As first, I have to install the damper holder and the ball head. To wet the part on the rear axle, I have to remove these screws. Now the part fits on the axle and I can screw it on. This long screw together with a ball nut. Here you can see the finished rear axle, and I can install now the other parts on the chassis. As first, the link holder, then the ball head on the middle position. Now I can prepare the inner link joint. Screw on the ball heads, insert the bearings, and screw the parts together. And install this joint on the chassis. Now I'm building the links. Here also they have a left and a right thread, long and short. The length is shown in the manual. Before I can install the rear axle, I have to install the driveshaft from the CC-01 kit. Now I can put on the links. And connect it to the rear axle. After screw on the driveshaft, the rear suspension is finished. So, shocks are installed now. These are aluminum oil dampers for CC-01 from Tamiya, in combination with Tamiya barrel springs. Suspension and dampers works fine and smooth. On the rear suspension also. Now a conversion to a stock CC-01. As you can see, the upgraded version looks much more precious. But how it works? Compared to the stock car, the upgraded suspension works smooth. Especially the rear suspension works better. I'm sure a big question is how is the big backlash on the CC-01 steering setup. I have to say the upgraded steering linkage have also much backlash. Maybe a little bit fewer, but it's not significant better. I think the basic construction of this system is the reason. But in my opinion, this backlash is not so a big problem. This car is built to go off-road. And there you cannot feel this backlash. How about the steering angle? As you can see, this is slightly better on the upgraded system. So I can say this upgrade improves the CC-01 chassis in some points. But overall, it is still a CC-01 chassis with its advantages and disadvantages. The upgrades does not turn this chassis into a completely different car. This should be clear, but as you can see, the CC-01 becomes much more precious with its nice aluminium parts. As last thing, I like to show you the body I use on this CC-01. It's the Mitsubishi Pajero. I have a lot of optional parts for this body, for example a roof rack, clear windows and many more. Later I'll do a video how I prepare, paint and build this body. So I say thanks for watching. I hope these informations were helpful for you, and if so, please give me a thumbs up. And subscribe to my channel if you not already have. See you soon.